Before you consider scrolling away, I urge you to pause and internalize this simple truth. This conversation was never intended for the broad audience. It was calibrated for a specific few. If these words have managed to reach you today, right now, it signals that the time for polite indifference has passed. True calls to purpose are not gentle invitations. They are disruptive, arriving with a force that demands immediate attention. In this current phase, only a select number are meant to truly absorb and respond to this frequency. You didn't actively seek out this information, and that exact lack of searching is the clearest reason it successfully located you precisely where you are. It wasn't curiosity, boredom, or a deliberate search query that brought this connection. It was a highly specific, almost magnetic alignment that pinpointed your location at this definitive moment. Life occasionally bypasses the formal request for permission or readiness. Instead, it moves intimately close, lowering its register, and speaks your name with an emphasis that cuts through all external noise. This specific interaction marks one of those profound, non-negotiable moments. You might already be feeling the initial effects, a subtle, grounding pressure deep within your core, a peculiar combination of disorientation coupled with an odd sense of familiarity, as if an inner part of you is leaning into the signal before your logical mind can formulate an explanation. This moment is beyond mere chance. It is not a casual choice you made. You were not the selector of this message. You were, instead, carefully identified, structurally aligned, and decisively found for a purpose that predates this conversation. There exists a profound, underlying reason why your life experience has consistently felt burdened with more weight than the experiences of those around you. It explains why certain opportunities or relationships seem to close definitively without providing any logical closure. It clarifies why your innate intuition remained keenly alert, while the awareness of others seemed dormant or asleep. It accounts for that persistent sensation of being evaluated, monitored, or subtly tested by an invisible system or force you could never fully define or see. Only a small cohort, the designated few, are truly called during each cycle. They are not chosen for any superficial perfection, but because they possess the innate capacity to withstand and process what others would instinctively choose to avoid or flee from. Your continued attention is the silent confirmation that you are one of these individuals. It is crucial to calmly, without any emotional overlay, absorb the profound implication of this realization. To disconnect now, to deliberately look away, is to permanently surrender the potential understanding of why your individual journey required a higher degree of difficulty. You would never fully comprehend why a relentless, silent pressure seemed to follow you everywhere, or why your inner being fundamentally rejected all commonplace, surface-level explanations offered by the world. To remain engaged, however, promises a form of deep clarity, yet that clarity is inextricably linked to an immense responsibility. A burdened few are genuinely prepared or willing to carry forward. Before we proceed to the next layer of this discussion, I ask you to take a brief, deliberate pause and formally acknowledge this juncture. Cement this moment by interacting with this content. Let a sign of alignment be the act of liking this video. Subscribe to this channel if you have not yet established a formal connection to this specific space, because these messages are never delivered by chance. They are delivered with intentional, perfect timing. Furthermore, enter the specific number **99** into the comments section. This is not arbitrary decoration. It functions as a powerful spiritual confirmation, an outward declaration that you are fully present, consciously awake, and open to integrating what the vast majority of people consistently overlook. This number signifies completion and a state of readiness, and those who are meant to understand its weight feel it immediately. Now stay with me, because what unfolds next will directly address why your life could never have been ordinary, and why this calling did not require or await your explicit permission. The inherent difficulty of your life was not the result of an arbitrary cosmic error, a curse, or simply bad timing. A path of comfortable ease was never etched into your fundamental design. While comfort naturally encourages rest and stagnation, it is resistance, the necessary friction, that actively builds true, enduring capacity. The souls designated to hold significant weight are exclusively forged under extreme pressure that would invariably fracture and collapse others. This is a common point of dramatic misunderstanding regarding one's personal narrative. People frequently view their past suffering and instinctively conclude that something went fundamentally wrong, when in truth, a vital process of evaluation was actively underway. Every frustrating delay, every perceived injustice or unfair setback, and every moment where you were compelled to maintain your composure without external validation or acknowledgement, was not a penalty imposed upon you. It was a rigorous evaluation. You were being quietly measured, not by the outward display of your suffering, but by the quiet, inherent dignity with which you carried yourself when no one offered any form of support, applause, or reasonable explanation. The persistent feeling of being misunderstood arose because the significant depth of your character fundamentally mismatched the shallow, surface-level priorities of the world immediately surrounding you. You felt an inevitable sense of isolation because, so often, you were internally providing emotional support and stability for others, while the significant weight of your own being had no reciprocal space to finally settle or rest. You absorbed deep, seated pains that were never intrinsically yours, carried unspoken tensions, and assumed responsibilities that were never officially delegated, yet you consistently persevered. Your movement was not marked by loud, dramatic outbursts, but by a quiet, unflappable steadiness. This kind of inherent stability is profoundly rare. Most individuals rapidly disintegrate when external support vanishes, when the supply of validation dries up, or when a quiet, unobserved strength is crucially needed. You did not collapse, even during periods of profound exhaustion, even when self-doubt was at its most intense, and even when you silently questioned why life demanded so much from you while seemingly granting others a far smoother passage, you remained fundamentally upright. This is not simply a matter of personality. It reflects an inner, robust structure. Easy, predictable pathways are reserved for those who are meant to travel lightly. Heavy, significant callings necessitate uneven, challenging terrain, because only persistent resistance truly exposes the maximum capacity a soul is capable of bearing. This is precisely why you are frequently expected to display profound understanding without ever receiving it, to offer forgiveness before any apology was given, and to stand firm and unyielding without ever being adequately supported or held yourself. This was not because you were invisible or unimportant. It was instead a confirmation of your extraordinary capability, and true, lasting capability is never forged or developed in an environment of constant comfort. The deep-seated confusion you often carried was not an indication of any weakness. It was a profound depth aggressively seeking its necessary context. The pervasive pressure you felt was not a symptom of anxiety. It was your innate capacity being systematically stretched and expanded. The internal compulsion to mature quickly, to gain insight sooner, and to perceive reality more sharply was not an act of cosmic unfairness. It was an intensive preparation. You were being systematically molded for a critical role that could not possibly be built upon weak or fragile psychological and spiritual foundations. Every single time you introspectively asked, "Why must this be so uniquely difficult for me?" the profound answer was subtly concealed within what you successfully endured without losing your core self. Others in your position might break, become deeply cynical, turn cold, or tragically perpetuate their pain onto the next generation. You did not choose that path. You quietly adapted, learned the difficult lessons, and internally refined your essence. This quiet, persistent endurance is the most unmistakable signal of all. Souls designated to carry a significant historical or spiritual weight are never introduced to life gently. They are tested early, pressed with consistent challenges, and strengthened invisibly through experience. This clarifies why your personal struggles were never minor or insignificant. Long before you consciously registered that anything extraordinary was unfolding, before you possessed the adequate vocabulary to describe it, and even before you dared to question the trajectory of your life, you were already under quiet observation. This was not a human form of surveillance, nor was it a judgment based on fleeting opinions, rumors, or superficial impressions. You were being accurately monitored by a higher, precise system, one that operates without haste, never feels the need to offer explanations, and only intervenes when the stakes are profoundly meaningful. This specialized form of observation is characterized by its silence, its meticulous precision, and its infinite patience. It does not announce its presence, it simply waits. This explains why you perceived recurring patterns instead of decisive resolutions, why situations seemed to endlessly loop rather than reach closure, and why core lessons reappeared in different guises until a fundamental inner shift occurred within you. You may have categorized these cycles as simple bad luck, poor timing, or excessive emotional sensitivity. Yet these repetitions were not random occurrences. They functioned as precise calibration points. Each cyclical return was not testing the specific outcome of the event, but critically evaluating your consistent reaction to it. Would you descend into resentment, or would you rise into deeper awareness? Would you permit yourself to collapse, or would you choose to accurately recalibrate your internal systems? Would you compromise your core integrity when you felt misunderstood, or would you fiercely protect it even when completely unobserved? Simultaneously, your intuition continued to prove its accuracy in ways that were frankly unnerving. You repeatedly sensed events before their manifestation. You felt energetic shifts long before they were physically evident. You instantly recognized a change in a person's underlying energy, even if their spoken words remained entirely polite. This was not fantasy. It was your fundamental perception being relentlessly sharpened under the careful eye of observation. When individuals exited your life abruptly, when connections dissolved without an explanation, or when conversations concluded without any sense of closure, this was neither rejection nor abandonment. It was a rigorous filtration process. Certain energies and dynamics were systematically removed because they lacked the necessary structure and alignment to accompany you into the demanding future for which you were being prepared. Genuine preparation often necessitates periods of isolation, not as a form of punishment, but as a critical tool for focus. You were not intended to be perpetually enveloped by noise. You were intended to achieve profound clarity. The observing system was not searching for an impossible perfection. It was actively seeking consistency and structural integrity. The review centered on how you chose to respond when carefully made plans imploded, how you genuinely treated people when there was absolutely no personal gain involved, how you navigated profound silence, how you carried a difficult truth when acknowledging it made you deeply uncomfortable. Every frustrating delay, every question that seemed to hang unanswered, every moment you felt tested without a guiding manual, was an integral part of this silent review process. The truly unsettling reality is this: you successfully navigated and passed stages of this critical examination without ever knowing a test was taking place. You maintained forward momentum without applause. You remained intrinsically aligned even when profound confusion reigned. This explains why the pressure has consistently intensified rather than receding. Higher levels of calling never feel inherently lighter at first. They feel exponentially more exacting and precise. The significance of this now is that observation, by its very nature, must culminate in a decision, and when the observation phase concludes, the process of activation inevitably begins. You were never unlucky. You were consistently under rigorous review. There is a powerful reason the number selected is 7. It is not chosen for superficial mystical appeal, nor for dramatic effect. It denotes a precise, demanding threshold that an extremely small number of individuals can cross without suffering total self-annihilation. 7 is not a measurement of mere quantity. It represents completion under intense pressure. It is the numerical signature that surfaces when an entity has been tested from every conceivable angle and yet successfully retains its fundamental structure. The vast majority of people are not excluded from this path by any external coercion. They exclude themselves by their own consistent preferences. Most individuals instinctively seek immediate relief, comforting reassurance, and emotional safety. Anything that provides quick, positive feelings with minimal internal cost. While there is nothing morally wrong with this approach, it automatically disqualifies them from engaging with certain complex paths. The select few, the designated 7, are fundamentally different because they do not prioritize comfort, even when they are profoundly exhausted and in desperate need of it. They prioritize meaningful purpose, even when that meaning demands profound sacrifice, immense patience, and internal, conflicting struggle. This difference appears subtle from an external viewpoint, but it creates a massive, enduring weight internally. You have always possessed a greater depth of feeling than others, not in the sense of emotional instability, but through heightened, relentless emotional awareness. You perceive complex layers, instantly recognize internal contradictions, and sense underlying tension long before it finds its way into spoken language. This depth undeniably enriches life, but it simultaneously makes it significantly heavier to navigate. Add to this your innate mental endurance, the capacity to maintain crystal, clear thought processes even as powerful emotions surge, to remain keenly observant when external situations descend into chaos, and to tenaciously hold onto accurate perspective when others react impulsively and dramatically. This specific type of enduring mental strength is not something that can be taught. It is exclusively forged through repeated, unavoidable exposure to high pressure without the option of retreat or escape. Then there is the element rarely discussed, your unwavering moral consistency under extreme strain. Recall the moments when cutting corners would have provided instant relief, the times when a bitter, cynical reaction would have been perfectly justifiable. The opportunities you faced to become colder, sharper, or less compassionate simply to protect yourself. You refused to take them, not from any weakness, but because a fundamental core within you utterly refused to trade essential integrity for temporary relief. That particular refusal comes at an immense cost. It inevitably isolates, it slows progress down, it creates an uncomfortable feeling of being fundamentally out of sync with a world that overwhelmingly rewards shortcuts and compromise. This is the precise reason why only a select number are called, because only a small fraction can maintain significant emotional depth without being consumed by it, possess vast mental endurance without becoming rigidly inflexible, and uphold deep moral consistency without falling into self-righteousness. This is not a flattering designation. It is a profoundly demanding mandate. To be among the few means you must carry a level of clarity that others actively avoid, an awareness that others choose to numb themselves against, and a responsibility that others prefer to delegate or ignore. It means, at times, knowing more than you actively wish to know, seeing undeniable patterns that you cannot unsee, and feeling the profound consequences of actions long before they fully manifest. It makes you incredibly rare, yes, but rarity does not translate to lightness. It translates to weight, and the majority of people collapse under this pressure long before they ever arrive at this specific point of reckoning. This is the exact juncture where most people would simply break down. But you did not. There was a critical moment in your personal history when something deep inside you finally ruptured. It was not a loud, public spectacle, but an event so deep that you felt it in places you rarely speak about. A moment where you uttered, perhaps only internally, I cannot sustain this any longer. That was not a moment of ultimate weakness. That was the precise, necessary point where the superficial, outer version of yourself ceased to possess the necessary strength to carry the immense power that was forming underneath. Genuine awakenings are never delivered wrapped in superficial joy, instant clarity, or celebration. They arrive heavily disguised as collapse. They appear when the existing, old structure can no longer withstand the immense pressure of the person you are fundamentally becoming. That breaking point you can vividly remember, the one that still causes a silent tightening in your chest, was not the end of your strength. It was the crucial exposure of it. When every familiar support system failed, something deeper, more resilient stepped forward. You did not instantly feel a surge of power. You felt an overwhelming emptiness. You were not inspired. You felt stripped down to your bare essence. Yet, even in that complete void, something intrinsic within you chose unflinching integrity over attempting escape. You had the immediate option to harden your heart, to descend into cynicism, to numb your pain, to blame the external world, to abandon your core values, or simply to survive as a diminished version of yourself. You refused. Even when utterly broken, you maintained your precision. Even when completely exhausted, you held onto your honesty. Even when profound bitterness would have felt entirely justified, you consciously refused to allow it to define your spirit. That choice was monumental. To continue moving forward when you feel robust is commonplace. To continue when you feel entirely hollow is a profound rarity. You kept moving without certainty, without reassurance, and without knowing if any of it would ever make logical sense again. That is not blind optimism. That is a state of deep, structural alignment that the vast majority of people never come close to achieving. You continued your journey not because you felt the warm comfort of hope, but because something deep within your knowing understood that the act of stopping would ultimately cost you far more than the act of continuing. That precise moment of rupture was indelibly recorded, not logged in human memory or archived by personal recollection, but marked by the universal system as undeniable proof that your absolute core holds its shape when the outer, protective layers fall away. Proof that your essential values are not situational. Proof that your existence is not held together by temporary comfort, but by profound, enduring internal structure. This is why that exact moment changed you permanently, even if you still struggle to articulate the asterisk, how asterisk. You did not return to the person you were before, because genuine awakenings do not restore a previous state. They radically recalibrate your entire being. Following that crucial juncture, you began to see differently, feel with a different intensity, tolerate significantly less superficial nonsense, and sense the underlying truth much faster. The inherent pain did not vanish, but it irrevocably lost its authority over your life. That was your initiation, quiet, brutally precise, and complete. The relevance of this now is that absolutely nothing that breaks you without fundamentally destroying you is ever wasted. That moment you recall was not your lowest point. It was your true initiation. At some point, the focus quietly but completely pivots from the question of asterisk, who asterisk you are, to the essential question of asterisk, why asterisk you are here. Your identity was merely the necessary preparation. Your mission is the absolute reason. And this is another point where many fundamentally misunderstand the nature of the call, because being chosen is often incorrectly mistaken for receiving a reward. It is emphatically not a prize. Nothing about this reality is a reward. It is a fundamental, demanding responsibility that requires precision, consistent restraint, and profound courage in arenas where no public applause is ever offered. You were not selected with the intention of being shielded from inevitable impact. You were selected to move asterisk into asterisk the impact with unwavering clarity when others completely freeze, to remain structurally steady when established systems fail, and to hold an accurate direction when widespread confusion takes hold. This is why your life consistently pushed you toward uncomfortable, acute awareness. You were being rigorously trained to see with perfect clarity under immense pressure, not to be sheltered from it. A significant component of this mission involves the deliberate dismantling of cycles that were deeply established long before you had any conscious awareness of them. Patterns quietly passed down, emotional inheritances, knee-jerk reactions that tragically repeat across generations because no one possessed the inner structure necessary to successfully interrupt them without completely collapsing. You stepped into that role of interruption, not with aggressive force or public drama, but with quiet, absolute decisiveness. Ending inherited, toxic patterns demands acute discernment, not brute force. It means consciously choosing a different path, even when the seductive pull of ingrained familiarity attempts to drag you backward. It means utterly refusing to carry what does not rightfully belong to you, even when misplaced guilt or a sense of loyalty attempts to bind you to it. This is where clarity transforms into a profound burden. Once you have seen the truth, you possess no mechanism to unsee it. When those around you instinctively collapse into reflexive reaction, you are expected to respond with measured intention. When others choose to look away from difficult truths, you are expected to remain profoundly present. That expectation is heavy, inescapable, and this clarifies why periods of solitude were not random accidents in your life. You were necessarily separated for your critical assignment, not because you were unworthy of connection, but because core clarity cannot survive contamination by unnecessary noise. Too many voices inevitably distort the true purpose. Too much social noise dulls the critical edge of discernment. You required ample space to finally hear what was real and essential. The loneliness you experienced was not abandonment, it was purposeful insulation. You were not isolated with the intention of being broken down. You were isolated with the specific intention of remaining fundamentally uncontaminated by the external world. And here is the element that must sink in slowly and completely. To be sent forth does not equate to being loud. It equates to being exact. It means showing up precisely where the truth is urgently needed, not where receiving attention is convenient or easy. It means carrying immense responsibility without internal resentment, providing direction without becoming dominant, and wielding authority without arrogance. The reason this moment is critical is because the act of sending always closely follows the state of readiness. And genuine readiness is never formally announced. It is profoundly recognized by the system. Something immediate and significant is about to require you to transition from a state of purely internal alignment to decisive external action. And that transition will inevitably be met with resistance, both internal and external. Maintain a state of acute awareness, because the impending shift will not wait to ask for your willingness. It will simply reveal exactly where your unique capacity is most critically needed in the world. Today is neither an end nor a conventional beginning in the way most people understand the term. It is alignment. Everything you have heard, everything you have felt, everything that has stirred uncomfortably within your spirit, it was not intended to excite your ego. It was solely intended to place you firmly back into your precise, necessary position. This is the ultimate moment where the external noise fully fades, and the clear, undeniable signal takes over. From this very point forward, something fundamental changes, quietly but permanently. You will begin to see with genuine clarity instead of persistent confusion. You will sense distinct direction instead of generalized pressure. You will feel a steady, inner guidance instead of paralyzing fear. This is not the promise of comfort or ease, but the presence of an unwavering, inner knowing that perfectly instructs you where to stand, when it is time to move, and exactly what no longer deserves 1 ounce of your precious energy. The former cycle of difficulty did not conclude because of an external shift. It concluded because you have irrevocably outgrown it. What once felt like an insurmountable weight now feels noticeably small. What once held controlling power over you now feels distant and irrelevant. This is not coincidence. It is the definitive mark of spiritual maturity. And grasp this truth absolutely clearly. Your name was called today, not to flatter your ego, but to provide an ultimate confirmation of what has already been true beneath the surface of your life. Timing is everything. If this message successfully reached you now, it is because you possess the capacity to carry it now, not last year, not tomorrow, now. And once this deep alignment occurs, it cannot be undone or reversed. You cannot return to a state of simple unawareness. You will not shrink back into old, ill-fitting patterns. You cannot pretend you did not fully hear what you have heard. From this moment onward, you walk with purposeful intention. You make choices with ultimate precision. You carry your responsibility without fear. Remain solidly grounded in this truth. You are not late. You are not early. You are exact. If you are still fully engaged and listening, write this definitive declaration in the comments. I am ready for what I was called for. Do not type these words lightly or casually. This is not a casual wish. It is a sacred declaration, a clear line drawn between the former person who was merely surviving and the person who is now confidently stepping forward. Allow these final words to settle into your deepest being. Walk calmly. Move deliberately. Trust absolutely what is guiding you now. And always remember this: you were not found so you could be convinced. You were found because you were already standing in position.